Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviriyam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma Vitvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May God protect both teacher and student. May He nourish us together. May we work together with great energy. May our studies be enlightening. May there be no hate among us. Om, peace, peace, peace.
Hari Om Acharya ji.
Hari Om. Good to see all of you. I take it for granted that all of you have book with you. And if someone who does not have a book, please let me know. You can either use the PDF format or the text.
Acharya ji, my book's delivery was pending, so it hasn't reached. It had to reach yesterday.
That's all right. That's okay. So today we are just reading the preliminary.
Yes, Acharya ji.
But before we start reading, I wanted to check, or rather request, that from this day onward, every Tuesday, we will continue reading this book until we complete. And my suggestion and request is that those who attend this should continue regularly to attend, because this is not something that you miss in between, and then you will not have a link if you attend the next class. So continuity is very important. So try to attend every Tuesday. And if you, for whatever reason, you cannot attend, please catch up by watching the video. But the continuity is very important. Is that clear?
Yes, Acharya ji.
Good. Now, second point is that keep a kind of a journal or a book and a pen with you, and try to write some points that are significant for you, or questions that arises in your mind, or doubts that arises in your mind. Please write it down. So, end of the reading session, we will have some time to raise question or comment if there is any doubt. So we will proceed slowly. There is no rush. There is no hurry to complete the book. Idea is to get the good understanding of the subject of the teaching. Okay? So let us start by knowing what is the book which says Insights into Vedanta, Tattvabodha. So it is, as I have mentioned earlier, it is very simple manner in which the gist of the Vedas are explained here. And therefore this is known as a Prakaran Grantha, and it is meant for the beginner. Some people like us who have a genuine interest to explore the spirituality, especially the philosophy of Hindu Sanatana Dharma. So it is Prakarana Grantha for beginners to know the higher truth, the absolute truth, and what is relative truth. So what does the Tattvabodha per se means? Tattva, as you have the book in your hand probably, Tattva means reality. And Bodha means enlightenment. So this is about reality of enlightenment. all concerning the self-realization or enlightenment. What is the reality? So this is what it talks about. And what are the kind of realities? As I earlier mentioned, there are three kinds of reality, known as Paramarthic reality, which is absolute truth. Vyavaharik reality, which is transactional truth. And Pratibhastik reality, which is illusionary. So with that simple understanding, we now take the book and start. So this one, that is what I'm referring to. There are many versions of Tattvabodha. This one is published by Ram Krishna Mission. So apparently this is influenced by the teaching of Ramakrishna Paramhansa and Swami Vivekananda. So it is according to their philosophy or teachings, this is written. Now, I'm not going to read the beginning of translator's note or inspirational. So let us pick up what is the inspiration? Why should one study this? It starts with a very interesting story, as mentioned in Kathopanishad, that there was long ago. I'm reading now, so those who have a book can read with me or just listen. This is point of inspiration. Long, long ago, there was a little boy by name Nichiketa. Now, this is a very popular episode in Katha Upanishad. There was a little boy by name Nichiketa. His father sent him to the kingdom of death, the emperor of death, known as Yama. He was out, so the boy waited for the emperor for 3 days. On returning from his tour, Yama saw the Nichitika and felt sad. And he felt that I made this little boy child wait for 3 days. And therefore he offered him to ask 3 boons. And this is how it goes. The first boon the boy asked is that when I return back home, my father must not scold me. He should recognize me rather, love me, and must not fear me. Because having come back from the abode of death, the father must not feel that my boy has now come back as a ghost. So he should accept me and love me. That was his first boon. The second boon Nichiketa asked is that some say that the universe, what happens after the death of the body? Some say that there is no truth of returning back. And so the Yama says, my child, this is a big question for you. Ask for horses or houses or kingdom. Do not ask for such a thing. The boy was, so he asked basically what happens after the death? After the death of the body, what happens? And the Yama says, for you as a child, it is such a question, hard for you to understand. Ask any other boon, I'm happy to grant, but this is something that is hard for you to digest. And then the Nichiketa was adamant and he wanted to know what happens, who survives, what survives. And then he says, it is the Atma. It is the Atma, which is what we call consciousness, that what survives. It does not die. And this is how the knowledge of immortality is spread among people. When Nichiketa returns back home, he brings back this knowledge, this wisdom, that it is only this body that dies, and there is something that survives. There is something which lives on, and that is Atma, that is consciousness. And this is the inspiration for all of us to study this text. Likewise, there are a couple of other stories about how the children is asking questions at very young age to know what is the absolute reality. Now I go on to the introduction of Advaita Vedanta.
Acharya ji, what is page number?
I'm looking at page 5. Page 5. Vedanta and us. What is Vedanta? Veda means knowledge. Anta means the highest. Vedanta therefore stands for the highest knowledge. There are many nuances of truth. Some is sitting there is true. Rama is sitting there is also true. Rama is sitting on the bench there is greater truth. Rama, age 30, is sitting on the bench in the park that reading a book is still greater truth. So the truth has different levels. One is just a simple truth, just by knowing that somebody is reading book. Then you go into what is the name, where is it, and go into detail, and that will let you know the greatest truth. So the gradation of the truth, basically. Evidently, the gradation in truth reveals the clarity of comprehension of something. That which is very hazy and unclear is only half true, while that which is perfectly and absolutely clear is the highest truth. I'm reading it quickly because when there is something of substance, I will take a pause and we can talk. Because I intend to read about 10 pages today. Vedanta teaches us the highest truth and nothing short of it. The highest truth is about ourselves. The ordinary truth is that we are so and so. Higher truth is that we are human beings called Rama or Jack or Jill or whatever. The highest truth is that we are really a reality alone, called Brahman or in Vedanta and nothing else. And this is teaching of Vedanta. So the highest truth, the first level of truth is that we are human. Second level is I am Umesh, you are Aditi or Kapilji. So the name and form is the second level of the. Third is level of this is that all that we see around us is reality. But the fourth and highest, greatest truth is that it is all is Brahman and nothing other than Brahman, or the greatest energy. Brahman, look, Vedanta, throughout these texts, you will hear the word Brahman, because in Vedas or in Vedanta, they use the terminology of Brahman, which is equivalent to the God or supreme energy or consciousness or supreme power. So the highest truth is that we are reality alone, called Brahman in Vedanta and nothing else. And this is the teaching of Vedanta. Now, what is the relation of Vedanta with cosmos? So the first talks about Vedanta with individual. Now it talks about Vedanta with cosmos. We should remember at the very outset of the truth of Vedanta is not a mere intellectual exercise, but a vibrant experience. Anyone, anywhere, anytime can experience this truth. The truth experience is for all, and our goal of life is to experience that. This is our goal of life. So the purpose of life is to experience that all is one, and that one is Brahman of consciousness. While telling us that we are neither Jack or John, but the reality itself, Vedanta also teaches us the highest truth about the universe we live in. The ordinary truth about the universe is that there are countless galaxies and Milky Ways and stars and planets, and that we live on this little planet with our relatives and friends and others. A little higher truth is that all these countless planets and stars and trees and living beings are permutation and combination of some 5 elements alone. The highest truth, however, is that everything is Brahman or reality alone. Raise a question if you find it anything that is not clear. Stop me. Now the
How
third,
Acharya ji,
yes,
how is it said that it is reality?
that is what we have to discover. That is why we are starting reading this book. That how is it called the reality? So that's why first sentence I said, try to remain regular and maintain continuity, because if you miss one class, you will miss some information or some knowledge. And this is the journey that we are doing, to realize, to know, to experience what is the reality. Okay? So wait for the answer. Now the third level is the Vedanta and the God. So the first phase was Vedanta for individual, Vedanta with cosmos, and now Vedanta and God. Vedanta teaches us about the one thing we have been believing in since the beginning of time, that is God. That there are many gods and goddesses to satisfy our numerous needs is lower truth. There are many gods and goddesses is a lower truth. That there is a supreme God who is the creator of the universe is a higher truth. But the highest truth is that there is only one reality called variously as God or Brahman, which is what exists. All else is mere false manifestation. That reality is vast and endless, and so is called vast. In the inverted comma, the vast, which is Brahman. Now, I'm reading this, but the idea of having book with you is to reread it yourself when you get time and contemplate. Thus, the Vedanta deals with all the phases of life, which is when deduced comes down only to three: God, the universe, and ourselves. Right? The supreme energy of Atman, which Brahman, which is called God. Second sphere or second field is the universe or cosmos. And micro level, all of us, individuals. So the whole of Vedanta is serious, practical, and real discussion about the mutual relationship between these three apparent reality. See, these are three apparent reality. Our reality at individual level or micro level is body, mind, intellect. Then at higher level, we see our senses perceive objects. For instance, we see the stars and planets or sky and clouds and trees and birds and all that other life forces and other objects. That's a subtle level. And third is the supreme consciousness, the Atman or Brahman. And how all these three are related and what is the absolute reality. So, for example, myself, the world around me, and the God. These are the only three things that concern me. What is the relationship between one another? Between me and the world and God, and myself and God. Advaita Vedanta says that all the three are but manifestation of only one. One alone exists. The rest is unreal. But Vedanta also proposes several other methods or models or viewpoints about reality. By Vedanta, one generally means Advaita Vedanta, yet this is a generalization only. So here we have to realize that Veda or Vedanta is a vast field of knowledge. It includes all different philosophies that came out of it subsequently. Much later, during the period of Sankara, when the sage Shankara, he proposed that he was revealed during his samadhi, the teaching of Advaita Vedanta, which means non-dual, which means there is only one. There is only one reality. Earlier, as we progress in this book, it will tell us different philosophy, what are the teaching of those other philosophies. So it will give us more clarity. Here is the second point, page 7, benefit of Vedanta study. Why should we study Vedanta? Swami Vivekananda asked the same question and answered it in a beautiful way, according to Vivekananda. What then is the use of Vedanta and all other philosophies and religions? And above all, what is the use of doing good work? This is a question that comes to the mind. If it is true that you cannot do good without doing evil, and whenever you try to create happiness, there will always be misery. People will ask you, what is the use of doing good? The answer is, in the first place, that we must work for lessening of misery. For that is the only way to make ourselves happy. Every one of us finds it out sooner or later in our lives. The bright ones find it out little earlier, the dull one little later. The dull one pay very dearly for the discovery and the bright one less dearly. In the second place, we must do our part because that is the only way of getting out of this life of contradiction. Both the force of good and evil will keep this universe alive for us until we awake from our dreams and give up this building of mud pies. So it's the realization is what we need to have. How do we do this realization? By dropping the ignorance. So how do you drop ignorance? By gaining the knowledge. It is through the jnana that you drop agyan. And what is the purpose of life? Vedanta removes the suffering. In the Buddhism came out of Hinduism, and philosophy of Buddhism says it is dukkha. The existence is nothing but suffering. And this is what Veda talks about it. Vedanta removes suffering. Misery should go and bliss should come. This is the goal of all living beings. We are endlessly in search of bliss everywhere. Why are we in search of happiness and bliss? We are in search of bliss because that is our essential nature. We are seeing only faint shadow of that supreme bliss, and hence this craving for bliss. Vedantic Brahman, the only reality is nothing but the bliss. To attain it, therefore, should be our goal. So, by obtaining the higher knowledge or wisdom of what is Veda, what is Vedanta, and what is Advaita Vedanta, giving us the wisdom to reduce the suffering. Because when you know that the suffering is to the body and we are not the body, or suffering is to the mind, we are not the mind or emotion. So, but to know that we are not body, mind, intellect, this study of Vedanta is necessary. Secondly, suffering should go. There are 3 types of suffering according to Sankhya philosophy. See, it is talking about another philosophy called Samkhya, which is the oldest philosophy of Hinduism. So according to Sankhya philosophy, there are 3 kinds of suffering. Suffering from oneself, suffering from natural forces, and suffering from other beings, which means that we suffer on our individual level. For example, we fall sick, or we have an injury, or we have an accident, and therefore we have a pain and suffering. The second kind of suffering is the natural calamities, earthquake, tsunami, lightning, whatever, floods, storms. These are the other kind of real suffering. The third real suffering is caused by other individuals, other beings. For example, a dog comes and bites you, or other beings hurt you. Therefore, you have a suffering. So suffering caused by other beings. These are the three kind of suffering that one can have according to Samkhya philosophy. So in spite of all our efforts, we cannot eliminate suffering. If we drive it out from our one place, it comes from another. Suffering will never go because it is existential. It is one with existence. We must transcend this limited existence in order to overcome the suffering. This is where the Buddhism began, because from Veda it says this: you cannot eliminate suffering. Suffering is part of this existence. But in order to go beyond suffering, you have to transcend the existence. And what does it mean, transcend the existence? To know what is the existence in reality. What is the absolute truth of existence?
Acharya ji, why at all we call it suffering?
When you fall sick and the pain is something that you have physically, but that pain, when it affects your emotion and your mind and your thoughts, that's suffering. For instance, you are unable to go out for a walk or jogging or holiday with your friends or families. One, that you have a bodily pain. Second, the absence of you enjoying the company of friends and family on holiday. That affects your thoughts or mentality or emotion, and that causes suffering. Now, there are suffering which are very subtle. There are suffering which are very intense. So when you see your friend or a neighbor has a better lifestyle, no matter you are contented with your own lifestyle, but back of your mind, you have this thought that your neighbor has a better lifestyle. And without your knowledge, the suffering comes into play. And that suffering is caused by other living being, as we just spoke. So there are three kinds of suffering. One, individual at micro level. Second, suffering comes in from other beings. And third, suffering comes from the natural forces. So the suffering, no one can escape in life. It will be there.
So suffering is generated by the discontentment in this particular case?
Yes. 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 Moment you accept it, there are no suffering. No, but this is only words and theory. When you implement in your life, you will realize how hard it is. When you start accepting at work or in your office, after putting up 10 years of work, for instance, you see your other colleague are being promoted and praised, but you are not. Without your knowledge, in your subconscious mind, there is some amount of unsatisfaction or suffering because you have not accepted it. Moment you accept it, that fair enough, he deserves better than me, then there is no suffering.
But Acharya ji, then there will be no growth?
No, growth is different. Growth is your ability. If you had ability, you would have been gained that promotion or recognition yourself. But because you did not get it, that means there is a lacking of your ability. So if you develop
Acharya ji,
that,
yes, I accept it. But then what happens that there is some sort of organizational politics or something that basically propels some of the people in the organizations while other people are not doing matlab, going for the organizational politics, and then so is it justified to acquire such traits and then go for the growth?
when you come to a term of acceptance, you have to apply the theory of karma. theory of karma. That means when you say there's some kind of diplomacy or politics in workplace, remember all that happens to us is only because we deserve it, only because we have attracted it knowingly or unknowingly, now or in recent past or long ago. Nothing ever happens without any cause, and we are the cause. So that's how when you gain that wisdom that of karma theory or law of karma, then you come to a term of acceptance that all that is happening to me in my relationship or in my career is because of my karmic account. But the moment you start accepting it, you transcend the existence, which means you have accepted the reality, accepted the existential reality. That is the way to avoid suffering. There are all kinds of suffering, as you know, physical suffering that you get here injured. There are emotional suffering, which is of higher cause. Now, to avoid emotional suffering, there is no other way but to come to a term to accept whatever that happens out of karmic account. These are the things that I said. Whenever you have doubt or question that arise, please write it down. And I'm trying to talk as much I can explain, but the same question that you asked today, end of this book, you will have no question. I promise it. So the idea is to resolve or dissolve the questions, not to find answer. And that will happen. So maintain your questions, maintain your doubt, write it down. End of the book, when you see your own questions, you may smile because you will have you have dissolved that question. You are not seeking answer. Let's continue. So, third paragraph or last paragraph of page 7, where were you? Aren't we 7? Page, yeah.
Page 10.
Sorry, page 10. Are we at page 10 already? Yeah. No. I am on page 8.
Page 7, last line, Acharya.
Correct. That's right. So Vedanta generally means Advaita Vedanta. Yeah. So now benefit of Vedanta study is what we're talking about. Okay. Yeah. So in the second place, we must do our part, because that is the only way of getting out of this life of contradiction. Both the forces of good and evil will keep this universe alive for us until we awake from our dreams and give up this building of mud pies. Vedanta removes the suffering. Misery should go and bliss should come. This is the goal of all living beings. We are endlessly in search of bliss everywhere. Why are we in search of happiness and bliss? We are in search of bliss because that is our essential nature. We are seeing only faint shadow of that supreme bliss, and hence this craving for bliss. Vedantic Brahman, the only reality, is nothing but bliss. To attain it, therefore, should be our goal. Secondly, suffering should go. There are 3 types of suffering according to Samkhya philosophy. Suffering from oneself, from natural forces, and from other beings. In spite of all our efforts, we cannot eliminate suffering. If we drive it out from one place, it comes to another. Suffering will never go because it is existential. It is one with existence. We must transcend this limited existence in order to overcome suffering. Limitation will go when we know the truth about ourselves. truth alone can liberate us from existential suffering. The knowledge of truth brings us true and lasting happiness. Why does this knowledge bring happiness? For the simple reason that falsehood can't bring true happiness. To see many in one, to imagine ourselves and others in that one, and to imagine suffering, misery, etc. in that one is called falsehood. This is ignorance. I'll repeat this para. Limitation will go when we know that the truth about ourselves. Truth alone can liberate us from existential suffering. The knowledge of the truth brings us true and lasting happiness. Why does this knowledge brings happiness? For the simple reason that falsehood cannot bring us happiness. To see many in that one, to imagine ourselves and others in that one, and to imagine suffering, misery, etc. in that one is all called falsehood. And this is ignorance. Every truly rational and scientific individual should study Advaita Vedanta for his or her benefit. And what is
Acharya,
that benefit?
You're on mute, Pramoji.
I didn't understand this previous line, what you repeated.
Okay, let me repeat another time. Why does this knowledge bring happiness? For the simple reason that falsehood cannot bring true happiness. To see many in that one, capital one, yeah, the Brahman. To see many in that one, to imagine ourselves and others in that one, and imagine suffering, misery, etc. in that one is all called falsehood. This is ignorance. So step by step. Step one, individual, all beings together as one, existence, cosmos, universe in that one. And in that one, if we assume there is a misery or unhappiness, that is our ignorance. That is the cause of suffering. And why is what it will explain. Why in that one there is no misery, there is no unhappiness. Because the nature of that one is always bliss, always love, joy, light, knowing, all knowing. These are the original nature of the Supreme Being. Every truly rational and scientific individual should study Advaita Vedanta for his or her benefit. And what is that benefit? The benefit is to become free from all limitations, sorrows, sufferings. The simplest truth about ourselves is this, that we think we are not. Yet we do not want to believe this. See, this is what it is. I remember I told you, I think, therefore I exist. Or is it, I think, I exist, therefore I think. That is what it talks about. I repeat, what we think we are not. What are we thinking of ourselves? We think of ourselves as this body, this name, the shape, the race, the community, the political and national belongingness. That is what we think of it. So I say, I am Umesh, I am father of my children, I am husband of my wife, I am Indian, I live in Australia. All this is not the truth. This is all relative truth, which is ever changing. Yeah, and ever-changing cannot be reality. And that is what I am not. And then I had to discover, if that is not I am, then who am I? Yet we do not want to believe this. Vedanta is not esoterical. It is compassionately telling us that we are, that is all that we are, or rather I am. No one need a proof or evidence that I exist. And what does exist? It is that energy that exists. All other thing is for time being. It's not permanent. Yeah, the body, mind, emotion changes. Your intellect changes. Something that does not change is your Atma consciousness. We are not listening to it. The chief teaching of Advaita is that our so-called individuality is false. This is very profound statement, that when we think that I exist as a body mind, that's false. I do not exist. I just does not exist. It is what makes me exist is what am I. Advaita Vedanta is the highest view of reality, born of experience. Advaita is a matter of experience, not theorization. Sri Shankaracharya had to propound. See, he was the one who propounded Advaita and the truth of Brahman being sole reality. Because of numerous reasons, he had to establish true religion and reject claims that everything is nothing. Shankaracharya overstressed oneness of truth and falsity of everything, because that was the experience of countless sages and himself. And that was the highest truth propounded by Veda. However, it is wrong to say that Sankara rejected the universe as unreal in every sense. So look, that's very important, what you just say. Knowing the absolute truth does not mean the relative truth does not exist. Relative truth will exist. Maya will still exist. Prakriti will still exist. Delusion will still exist. You only know that it is delusion. You only know it is Maya. You only know this is temporary. You only know it is relative because you know what is absolute. Until you know what is absolute, for all of us, this reality, which is relative reality, we think this is ultimate, this is the final, this is the absolute. And that's our ignorance. So until we know that it is only relative reality and not absolute reality, we are in ignorance. And we have to transcend that ignorance. We have to go beyond what our senses can perceive, what we experience in our day-to-day life is not that it does not exist. It's not just everything is Maya and nothing exists. Everything exists. Everything is there. But it is only relative truth. It is only temporary. It is the projection of your own mind, your own intellect. Very simple example is this. Each one of us have a favorite. If I ask your favorite color, each one of you have different colors, for example. Or if I ask your favorite flower or your favorite food, all of us have. Why? If the flower is beautiful, it should be beautiful for everything, for everybody. If the rose color is the best color and most favorite, then rose should be favorite for everybody. But it is not, because it is relative truth. It is not absolute. Advaita Vedanta is the highest view of reality, born of experience of Advaita is a matter of experience and not theorization. So as I said, this knowledge was revealed to the sages during their samadhi. So it was an experienced knowledge or experienced wisdom. It was not just the theory. It was not just the philosophy, but actual realization. It is wrong to say that Sankara rejected the universe as unreal in every sense. When the soul experiences the highest, then there is no duality. You see, when you know the absolute truth, then there is no duality. Then what exists, you will see that same absolute Brahman or God everywhere, in everyone, because that is the only one which exists. Nothing else exists. Everything else is just the appearance. The common, well-known saying in our Hinduism is that God can appear in any form and shape and name. Am I right? So that is what it is. How can it appear in any shape, name, and form? Because it is there. That consciousness exists everywhere. Suppose we dislike the idea that the world is unreal, yet it is a fact. Truth does not pay homage to any society, ancient or modern. Society has to pay homage to truth or die. Societies should be molded upon truth, and truth has not to adjust itself to the society. This is the quotation of Swami Vivekananda. So Advaitic truth is the highest, but not the only correct view, because truth can never be limited. So the Advaita Vedantic truth is the highest, but it is not the only. There are many other truths which are also same. And that's how the Ramakrishna Paramahamsa used to say, the goal is to have the realization or awakening, whether by doing a prayer or meditation or gaining the knowledge, whatever way, but the goal must be to reach the highest truth. It is like you want to cross the river and you have a choice of taking a different kind of boat. What boat you ride is not important. Important is to cross the river, to go to the other shore. So that is what it says. Ramakrishna always says that one can never say God is this much alone and truth is beyond thought and words. What truth is should only be experienced. So there are other views of reality as well. When once the individual realizes that he or she is the infinite truth, he or she can't explain that truth in words. That is what sages and saints tell us. Remember, I told many times that people who attain the samadhi, who are awakened, who are self-realized, they can only experience, they cannot describe it. They can only give us the pointers. They can only tell the path, but they cannot make us walk on that. So it can only be experienced, it cannot be described. And therefore, the unknown remains unknown till you know it, because unknown cannot become unknowable, because you cannot describe it. You cannot describe. When you are sitting in dhyana, and if you experience a moment of bliss, and later on, can you try to explain what was that bliss? You can only experience it. You cannot describe that peace. It's like you have a guest at home and you made some very interesting sweet dessert, and you try to say, this is the dessert I made. It is very sweet. The guest will say, how sweet is this? How can you explain? Sweet is sweet. You have to test it to experience how much sweet it is. The cook cannot describe how much sweet it is. Now, this is the last page, and then we will end today. Vedanta technical details. Vedanta is the end portion of Vedas. This is just for the knowledge. It really, it's just for that knowledge, as I said. It doesn't have any other importance. What is Vedanta? Vedanta is the end portion of Vedas. The authorship, date, and other details of Vedas are being debated. No one knows who wrote it, when was it written, no one knows. So Vedas and then Vedanta, two different things. Vedas are those literature. Vedanta is the end of knowledge. And the different kind of Vedas, as I said earlier, there are 70% of Vedas are only rituals. So only the last 20-25% is the Gyan Marg or Tattvabodha, or talks about spirituality. What are the initial? And there is a purpose for that. It's not that meaningless. According to religion tradition, the Vedas are created by the Supreme Being, Brahman, for the benefit of humanity. They are eternal truth and become manifest in every age according to necessity. Vedas are divided into 4 groups. This is just for knowledge. The first one is called mantras. The mantra is primarily a collection of hymns and prayers addressed to numerous gods and goddesses seeking everything under the sun. That's mantra portion. Second portion of Veda is Brahmana. Brahmana is primarily collection of sacrificial rules and details regarding performance of numerous sacrifices, rituals. Third portion is Aranakya, is primarily constitution of the sacrificial idea, but it also contains idea about the Atma, Brahman, and so on. These are the beginning of the purely spiritual element of the Veda. So the Aranakya is the beginning of the knowledge. Yeah, it's the beginning of knowledge. And then the fourth portion is Upanishads. So Upanishad is the end part of Vedas and known as a Vedanta. The first 3 divisions of Vedas are primarily about the world, and the next seeking happiness, prosperity, destruction of enemies, food, cattle, progeny, and so on in this world. So it talks about the immediate reality. Yes, please.
Vedanta and Upanishad the same? Vedanta.
Upanishad, end of every Veda, there is Upanishad. Upanishad is the Gyan, is the knowledge, is the wisdom. Yeah. So mantra, Brahmana, Aranakya. And after 3, then comes Upanishads. Now, there are many Upanishads, but there are very popular or important Upanishads that will come later on. It will talk about it.
But there are 4 Vedas. There are 4 Vedas. So if for every Vedas there is a Upanishad?
Yes. And by the way, 4 Vedas are the popular known Vedas. There have been many, hundreds of Vedas, but unfortunately, they do not exist. And that's another subject we can talk separately. But there are plenty of Veda books or Veda literatures, but they do not exist anymore. And over a period of time, that knowledge, that wisdom is not spread among the community. Various reasons. And therefore, most people know about only 4 Vedas.
Vedanta come after Upanishad?
Vedanta literally means Upanishads, because Vedanta means end of Veda, end of knowledge. Veda is knowledge.
Is it the nectar of Veda?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. So the first three division, see, this is the reason why the three different portion or four different portion of Vedas. First three portions of Veda talks about the relative reality, where you need to do the sacrifices and seeking of food and seeking of happiness and bliss and wealth and progeny and destruction of enemies and stuff like that, which was in our day-to-day life. It's a relative truth. So that's what it talks about. So it gives us the information that these are things that are relative truth, and how you translate step by step, how you move or evolve beyond those sacrifices and rituals. Gradually, the Vedas take us to the highest. Thus, we come to the Upanishads. Upanishad is the repository of spirituality. It is the highest knowledge, knowledge of the Atman and Brahman. Atman is Brahman. This was the fundamental discovery of universal implications made by Indian sages. The Upanishads lead us to liberation from bondage. Upanishad as sacred literature are called Vedanta. They are the Veda Anta end portion of Vedas. They are both physically and spiritually the end portion. Physically, they are situated towards the end of each Veda. Spiritually, they teach us the highest truth, the truth that liberates the suffering and bound living being and take him to the threshold of supernatural and everlasting bliss. I guess we stop here, and we will continue from this point onwards. Who wrote the Veda? What are these different four Vedas, etc. And it will go on talk about it. So remember, we are stopping at the point which says who wrote the Veda. That is what we will do on next Tuesday. Now, as I said, I read this much as quickly as I can, but each one of us must mark the lines or sentences or write down doubts and questions. Very important. And then try to do some amount of contemplation on what you are questioning or what is your doubt. And wait, hold on to it till we complete. So anything that is not acceptable to you as of to now, so whatever we read so far, because it's good to have questions. There's no doubt about having questions. Remember, and this book will tell us as we progress that we need to be qualified to study this book. Yeah, so such something, sampati, the fourfold qualification that we should have, qualities that we should have. It will come. Then we realize, do we really qualify? But this will only help if we maintain continuity. This I'm probably studying it fourth time, this book. Because my notes that I maintain in my book, my journal, I used to have questions like many. And then I realized that there's no point having questions. So if there are no questions, we can conclude. Asato ma satgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityorma amritam gamaya. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Samasta loka sukhino bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you, God, for giving us air to breathe. Thank you, God, for giving us water to drink. Thank you, God, for giving us sun for energy. Thank you, God, for giving us food to eat. Thank you, God, for giving us good health and happiness. Thank you, God, for giving us all that we need. Thank you, God, for giving us positivity. Thank you, God, for giving us all that we need. Thank you, God, for your love, your protection, your guidance, your blessings. Thank you, God, for the existence. Thank you for giving me a chance to serve you. Thank you.
Thank you, Acharya.
Thank you.
Thank you, Acharya ji. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you, Acharya ji.
The same, Acharya ji. Thank you, everyone.